Tabletop games and video games have always had an interesting close-knit relationship. Some of the earliest RPGs adapted tabletop mechanics into digital form, and the importance of these mechanics in these worlds is obvious to this day. Baldur's Gate 3 is a prime example of a fantastic modern video game adopting tabletop mechanics. But at the end of the day, it's clearly a video game. It's understandably difficult, if not outright impossible, to recreate a genuine tabletop experience in a video game or to recreate a video game experience in a tabletop game. However, Sunderfolk's approach to the world of video games and tabletop games blurs the line like none before. For Game Rant Advance, we spoke with several developers at Secret Door about the world and game design of Sunderfolk. Not only does Sunderfolk have something to offer fans of tabletop and video games, but it has its own unique world building and lore that is hopefully expanded over the game's lifecycle. On the surface, Sunderfolk may seem like a simplistic turn-based RPG, but digging deeper reveals how well-designed all aspects of the Sunderlands are. Of course, we couldn't help but ask about its unique game feel that takes the best of modern tabletop and video game design and recreates them in new ways. The entire design of Sunderfolk feels like it's geared towards a tabletop game, but with a video game presentation. The way players engage with the story, each other, and the various NPCs takes the best moments at the table and gives them a makeover. As any tabletop fan knows, a session can often consist of little plot development, a few derailing moments, and plenty of shenanigans. Sunderfolk caters to that exactly, while also paying homage to the classics in its class design and adopting a newcomer-friendly look and UI. This also means eliminating one of the worst effects tabletop games can have on new players: information overload. One major way, though not the only, that Sunderfolk accomplishes this specific game feel is in its unique control scheme, your phone. It's a creative way to distill all the information a player needs before them, while also encouraging them to interact with the other players in tabletop ways. Players are encouraged to speak with one another and decide how to tackle combat together, while the game unfolds before them on a screen. Their unique character abilities, fate decks, gear, and so forth are also handily available. Overcoming information overload is important, with Haistiba Arshead speaking to how balance was often done by asking, quote, "Is this something that should be collaborated on or specific to the player?" End quote. She also added, quote, "For instance, we initially assumed that all combat information should exist on the main screen because combat is a collaborative activity. This approach made it difficult for players to remember what every monster did and limited the complexity of our game mechanics immensely. The game's potential really opened up when we introduced the mission guide on the personal screen. Players can asynchronously reference what every character or object does on the board without interfering with their party's experience." End quote. Now, Sunderfolk is not the first game to integrate a mobile device into gameplay, and for various reasons, some would-be players may be hesitant about this mobile device as a controller approach. That description isn't necessarily accurate, though. It feels better to describe it as a mobile device as your character sheet approach. After all, it feels less like a controller and more like a valuable tabletop resource. Once upon a time, tabletop players may have had to dig through various resource books to find certain rules. One big piece of advice then was to follow the dungeon master's discretion and brush up on the rules later. But now any rule can easily be found with a quick internet search. It's the right amount of information in the palm of your hands without needlessly digging through resource books for an obscure rule. That's exactly how it works in Sunderfolk 2. When engaging in combat, all the information you need for Sunderfolk's abilities is on your mobile device as part of your character sheet. Movement? On your mobile device as part of your character sheet. DM passing a note for your character. An alert on your mobile device is part of your character sheet. References and pages from character sheets are gone, and Sunderfolk provides info players need when they need it. It doesn't feel like playing a video game and replacing a traditional keyboard or controller. It feels like playing a tabletop game, one with all the strengths of a video game, with a well-maintained all-in-one character sheet and guidebook. The way the mobile device is integrated into the world of Sunderfolk makes it feel as immersive as the best tabletop and video games. Players can receive alerts that their character has noticed something, which they can then choose to share with the party or not. Some players will be able to name enemies, which is a great way to leave their mark on their world of Sunderfolk or make a joke with your friends. Players can also build relationships with NPCs to similar effects. Speaking to the ways that Sunderfolk immerses its players, Aaron Marek explained, quote, "Naming things is one of the features that plays a dual role in the player experience. On one hand, it provides a moment of social levity for groups, where they can create in-jokes and leave little fun secrets for other players to discover. On the other hand, for those highly invested in the world, it provides an opportunity to contribute to it and build within its confines something unique to their experience. End quote. The Secret Door devs also understand that some players may be initially put off by using a mobile device to play a standard video game. To those players, Chris Sagatti says, quote, "We understand that some people initially are skeptical of the idea of phone controls, and that's a challenge we have to keep working to overcome. What we've found is once people give the phone controls a chance, they understand just how powerful it can be." One of my favorite comments from our recent closed beta was someone commenting on the fact that they were playing Sunderfolk as a family, and for the first time in recent history, they were seeing the phone used in a positive way for social, in-person interaction. Those are the exact sort of moments that we're trying to create, and the phone controller really helps enable that. End quote. Of course, how the mobile device creates this at-the-table feel is only one part of the equation. All of this is in service of the greater world and storytelling of Sunderfolk. This is normally where a lot of video games and tabletop games diverge because of the medium. In tabletop, your character can say whatever you desire. In video games, you're limited by dialogue options or on-screen text as but one example. And that's true enough for Sunderfolk too, but it continues to bring that barrier down in fun ways. For example, there is a game master in Sunderfolk played by Anjali Bomani, Symmetra in Overwatch, and Rampart in Apex Legends, who is a staple in the tabletop community. She plays every character, giving them each their own little voices as a DM might, instead of simply playing different characters. She is guiding players through this experience as a real dungeon master or game master would, and it invites that same sense of community and storytelling common in the tabletop space. Players are limited, of course, in what they can do on screen, but when playing together, they can add all the intensity or levity they like. The character classes are essentially blank slates, so players can step into the minds of these characters the same way they can with their Dungeons & Dragons characters. This approach also applies to the art style of these characters, of Ardan and of the Sunderlands. As Darren Bader explained, quote, "We spent quite a bit of time exploring traditional dungeon crawling characters and styles, but wanted something a little more accessible and lighthearted. So we landed on a style with a touch of humor and a cozy vibe, balanced with a little bit of grit and atmosphere to keep the stakes palatable." End quote. In Sunderfolk, players live in the underground world known as the Sunderlands, where every sentient being is some form of anthropomorphic animal. The village of Ardan, under the protection of the Life Tree, is their home. Both Ardan and the Life Tree find themselves under threat by ogres, seemingly led by an ogre queen. That simple plot speaks to the simple origins and importance of community often seen in tabletop games. That and, of course, Sunderfolk begins in a tavern. It's a simple tale of good versus evil, and minus the murder hobos of the tabletop world, that speaks to the essence of tabletop games. It's a world where players become heroes instead of just playing them, and in the world of Sunderfolk, players become those heroes too. The animal approach also helps fulfill one of the oldest but noblest of tabletop tropes. There's gonna be something cute, an offhand NPC that must be protected at all costs. That's not to say, however, that Sunderfolk relies on all common tabletop tropes. As Aaron Marek explained, quote, "When making Sunderfolk, there was a goal to reference the kinds of tropes that you'd see in classic fantasy TTRPG settings, but with our own twist to the expected. Our animal heroes are a great example of that. We tried to make these tropes our own by thinking about how they would exist in our world and what makes them different in the Sunderlands. The largest elements were the underground setting and animal creatures, both of which were used as a layer of differentiation when adjusting the tropes to fit within the world of Sunderfolk. To protect Ardan, players will embark on quests, upgrade and improve the town, befriend NPCs for rewards, and fine-tune their builds, fate decks, usable items, and equipment. Ardan, meanwhile, serves as a hub and home for the players. They'll encounter and meet NPCs, with the Grove Tender and Sinclair arguably being the most important characters. The Grove Tender, a tortoise, is the spiritual and political leader, responsible for the Life Tree, and Sinclair, a mole, is a pillar of the town who runs the local tavern with seedier connections. Other NPCs include a noble guard bug, a spoiled penguin, an entrepreneurial puffin, and a hare who constantly forgets their own name and those of their family. By improving their standing with some NPCs, players may also unlock a few romances, such as one with Zuri, the dancer dog who Aaron Mark describes as a real tsundere. Ardan is a home, but it also brings with it several engaging gameplay mechanics. Players are able to unlock and upgrade 10 locations with golden trinkets, for example. These locations open up new features, but they also unlock conversations, combat benefits, fate cards, and bonus content. Without going too far into spoilers, Fans can expect to unlock and upgrade the following: the Temple, Ardan's Gate, the Post Office, the Workshop, the Smithy, the Tavern, the Market, the Oracle, the Clother, and the Bridge. Summarizing Ardan's role in the game, Chris Sagatti also added, quote, "Ardan is a very special part of the game. To me, what the artists achieved is nothing short of amazing. It's a beautiful representation of the place the characters come from, and is perhaps the single most important glimpse into the Sunderlands in the entire game. It's like a living diorama that I still get blown away by when I stop and take it all in." Speaking to Kara Senteldunk on enemy design and variety, quote, "There are 14 types of common enemies and 3 boss monsters in Sunderfolk. We also made a few enemies that are unique to certain encounters. So we really have a wealth of enemy types and combinations for players to test their skills against. A lot of our enemy types relate to the specific environments players experience in the game. Those environments get delightfully different from each other, so our enemies do too. So I'd say no, the setting didn't create unexpected challenges for enemy design. I think it lets us get specific about what kind of creatures might stand in the player's way." End quote. We also spoke to Senteldunk about boss fights. Quote, "I really wanted bosses to feel scary and powerful, since they were going to be the target of an entire hero party. I also wanted bosses to increase the amount of strategizing players had to do together to be successful. Throughout the game, in a round, all players take their turns, then all monsters take their turns. This approach lets players collaborate with each other fluidly. Boss fights change this dynamic because the boss activates after each player takes a turn, instead of during the monster's phase. It makes bosses more reactive, forcing players to more often change up their strategy on the fly as the boss takes actions around the board. Since the boss takes repeated turns, collaboration is just as necessary to save your friends from repeated attacks as it is to build up an attack and let loose." End quote. Jarek Flores also told us all about fate decks. Quote, "Any good adventure has its ups and downs, and the unpredictability of exactly when those moments happen is what makes the journey all the more fun. At its core, the Fate deck is our opportunity to inject some chance in the gameplay during a critical moment, an attack and its damage. As part of an attack, you pull a Fate card from your deck to modify the damage of an attack and even add additional effects. The randomness the Fate deck provides guarantees that missions can never be truly solved. There is always a sense of risk and hope in your choices. Best laid plans go awry and last-ditch efforts succeeding are some of the stories that the Fate deck helps create. To that end, we designed the Fate deck to enforce a strict ratio of positive, negative, and neutral effects to provide those highs and lows in your quests throughout the Sunderlands." Xavier Gordon spoke to us about ultimate abilities. Quote, "The approach behind determining the ultimates was based on the class's gameplay niche and fantasy. What does the character most want to do? And what does their team most want them to do? For the Pyromancer, the answer is simple: fire, fire, and more fire. And the Ranger is also straightforward: snipe an enemy out of existence. For the Berserker, they want to tank for their team, and they also want to make their team more tanky. The Archinist wants to control the battlefield and prevent their team from being attacked. And the Rogue, well, they want to attack again, and again, until no one's left standing. I hope these fantasies come across in the gameplay for maximum effect." We spoke to Neo Hung on trinkets. Trinkets are items that let players add an extra action at any point after declaring their spell during an encounter. They open up a new layer of strategy, either by synergizing with the player's existing kit, or acting as a clutch lifeline when health is low or things get intense. My favorite trinket has to be Chirp's Whistle. It summons Chirp, the ever-determined guard bug who jumps into the fight and battles alongside you." End quote. Xavier Gordon gave us the detail on weapons. Weapons definitely add a new layer of strategy to battles, allowing players to combo their abilities in new and interesting ways, or even react to enemies' abilities, changing the tide of battle, but only when the weapon activates. Weapons can activate from all kinds of things in battle, like taking damage or pushing enemies. Players will have to balance the weapon's activation conditions with the weapon's effect. A weapon that activates regularly won't be as powerful as a weapon that only activates once or twice a session. Select weapons that round out your team comp to beat tough battles, and grant effects unavailable anywhere else. My favorite weapon is the Splatter Spore, which allows me to gift my allies with shrooms when they get walloped. Can I offer you a shroom in this trying time? To complete all of this, players can choose between 6 classes, each sporting their own anthropomorphic animals. The beauty of this design is how much room there is to grow when adopting classic tabletop classes and giving them the Sunderfolk twist. Game Rant's Joshua Duckworth hoped to see a paladin-style class with an anthropomorphic lion someday, but the developers also have their own ideas. Chris Sagatti wants another frontrunner class, while Xavier Gordon specifically wants a wolf warrior since he's a fighter main. Aaron Marek wants something more more concretely lizard-like. Sentel Dunk wants a round character, something like a hippo or a frog alchemist. And Jarek Flores wants to fulfill the gambler archetype with a lucky creature like an elephant or rabbit. Those are all the maybes and somedays, but the lineup of Sunderfolk classes is already impressive. The Berserker is your barbarian, who deals and takes damage on the front line and protects the other party members. Fittingly, there is a rage mechanic for the Berserker. Their fantasy is pretty straightforward, but it is incredibly appealing, with Xavier Gordon explaining, quote, "Do you enjoy smashing things with your bare hands or giant hammer? Do you want to stand firm, shielding your allies as your puny opponents break themselves upon you? Then the Berserker class is for you. The Berserker is a straightforward frontline tank that soaks damage to become more powerful. They're capable of withstanding attacks in a single turn and offering utility to the team by throwing heroes and enemies around. They capture the unstoppable force archetype of players who just want to become enormous juggernauts by the end of the campaign, and I'm definitely one of them." End quote. At a prior preview event, Game Rant's Joshua Duckworth played the Berserker class alongside a Screen Rant colleague who played Pyromancer and Aaron Marek who played a Bard. In one battle, Joshua had lined up a way to get a bunch of gold for his character, who in Joshua's mind was very happy about that, just to have both the Pyromancer and the Bard take the gold, before Joshua could secure the bag, ensuring his poor Berserker would never trust again. Joshua hasn't forgotten. It is forever a vendetta in his mind. Playfully, of course. The Pyromancer is most akin to Dungeons & Dragons Sorcerer, one who focuses on elemental magic. They can spread flames around the battlefield and excel in area of effect magic, and they can buff themselves by stepping into their spreading fire. The Pyromancer is the kind of character who doesn't really think about who else is in the room when casting fireballs. If this were Dungeons & Dragons, with Neo Hong explaining, quote, "Do you enjoy unleashing explosive fireballs with massive destructive power while looking cool and cute doing it? Why settle for tactics and plans when you can incinerate your problems and accidentally create a few more in the process? That's the Pyromancer for you, a fiery bundle of joy and chaos, harnessing the raw power of flames to roast foes to a crisp. If you're the kind of player like me, who fires first and worries later, this is the hero for you. With sky-high damage and a flair for turning battlefields into fire and chaos, the Pyromancer is your ticket to glorious mayhem." End quote. The Ranger taps into the world of Rangers and Druids in Dungeons & Dragons. Not only are they able to deliver powerful ranged attacks, but they are capable of leveraging nature to debuff foes and support allies. They are a little bit of both worlds. Speaking to the Rangers' gameplay fantasy, Xavier Gordon said, quote, "Do you want to snipe your foes from across the battlefield, splitting the bullseye down the middle? Are you the strategist in your party who loves it when a plan comes together? The Ranger is a long-range attacker and support class, capable of dealing high single-target damage and laying traps to catch enemies and boost allies. They have an approachable kit, but have the greatest effect when wielded by a strategic player who can constantly activate their passive by staying back from enemies and utilize their unique supportive abilities by manipulating the map. Play the Ranger if you want to make a targeted impact, like an arrow in a fight." End quote. An assassin at their heart, Xavier Gordon went into how players can expect the rogue to play. Quote, "Are the shadows your friend? Do you pick the perfect chance to strike? Are you always one step ahead? Are you a playmaker who never misses an opportunity to show your skills? Then the rogue is a great match for you. The rogue in Sunderfolk is primarily a shadowy assassin, excelling at dealing devastating damage from the shadows. The rogue has several tools at their disposal to navigate the battlefield, but they must always return to the shadows to gain the ability to evade enemy attacks and dispatch their foes. Players familiar with the genre and those who embrace the Shadow's Call will make the best use of the rogue's high-risk, high-reward playstyle while playing on the knife's edge." End quote. The Archinist is weird and one of the most complicated classes in Sunderfolk, as they can control and manipulate the battlefield. They have a unique mana mechanic that lets them deal damage, teleport friend and foe alike, and send out decoys, among other wizard-like abilities. Speaking to the Archinist key player fantasies, Sentel Dunk said, quote, "Do you want to be a cool wizard? Do you want to outsmart, outplan, and outpower your enemies? Does the phrase glass cannon intrigue you? Then the Archinist just might be for you. The player fantasy is a studied spellcaster archetype, right down to that character's bespectacled glasses getting that anime-style threatening shine in their ultimate animation." End quote. The Bard, similar to the Dungeons & Dragons class of the same name, utilizes music to deliver support magic. They can inspire, heal, and buff allies, while using repositing abilities when a tactical retreat is necessary, even if the Berserker doesn't want to retreat. Luckily, it doesn't seem this Bard will develop the same reputation as Dungeons & Dragons Bards. As Aaron Marek explained the Bard's specific character fantasy, quote, "The Bard can do a bit of it all, and perhaps most importantly, they look good doing it. A real master of none, they're the most support-pilled class in the game for those who want to set their friends up and be the orchestra of some amazing plays for their allies. Plus, they're a bat, and a cute little crop tuxedo with a butterfly loot." End quote. In many ways, Sunderfolk inherits 30 years of tabletop and video game design. By taking more and more from the former and applying it to a video game, Secret Door is utilizing the strengths of both and removing their weaknesses. The end result is one of the most unique games of 2025, and it may not end there. While Sunderfolk focuses on the town of Ardan, Aaron Marek spoke about the two other existing animal cities known as Winter's Nest and Saltshore. Players will have to check out the game to learn more, but it's clear there's more to the Sunderlands for players to speculate and consider. Specifically, Aaron Marek said, quote, "We'll left a few mysteries unsolved, with hopes of hinting at the larger world and future potential within the Sunderlands. Of course, it's the players who will define Sunderfolk's legacy, and it's the players who will engage in this digital community and expand into others." When Secret Door says one of Sunderfolk's driving factors is for players to rediscover game night, it's easy to also see how they approached reinventing it for players who love both facets of gaming. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. Why not tell us what's your favorite tabletop game in the comments below? Keep clicking around here at Game Rant, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.